So there's a documentary which is currently on Netflix right now, which is called Blackfish. Netflix is awesome. I don't know if you've gone on Netflix, but Netflix is amazing. I'm sure that everybody in the world has, but I just have to say that. So I do watch a documentary from time to time, and I saw that just like a the title just says Blackfish, and it has this big orca whale on it. So um, I watched it. I've watched it like twice, and I guess it kind of led me to want to talk about some things about the morality or ethical the ethical or the actually the immorality of that which is SeaWorld. SeaWorld is a tourist park which you'll find in places like um, California. Like there's one in San Diego, California, and there's also one in Orlando, Florida. I don't believe there is any other one in the continental United States, but I'm not sure. So SeaWorld is. I'm sure that you've probably been to a SeaWorld. It's pretty common thing, to go to that where you are on vacation. I've been to SeaWorld a couple of times, and it was a fun time. It was a fun experience. I will say that. But one thing I do remember being at a SeaWorld in California and seeing the orca whale's fin, his top fin, turned over like this. I recall that happening. I remember seeing that. So I want to discuss um, the the moral wrongness or immorality that the documentary of Blackfish does show. Um, it just kind of shows how unethical and immoral it is to keep the orca whales in captivity like that. And I would say that goes for the all of the animals. I would say that it goes for the dolphins, the seals. And I guess you could go to you could take this onto a big discussion about zoos in general. So I want to discuss that at some point. The whole idea of how ethical it is of zoos to keep animals. Um, but in this video, I want to stick to mostly the keeping of orca whales because that is what this documentary discusses: the keeping of orca whales and for entertainment of people. So what I call the dominant worldview in environmental ethics is this idea that humans are superior and they should have to use the world and all of its animals and plants and everything in the whole world at its disposal, and can try to get as much capital or product out of the world as they can, try to get as much money out of using the world's resources as they can, and it's just this idea of greed, where it's a capital driven thing. It's driven towards capital and it's driven towards trying to, it's we have these big corporations, whether it be in the U.S. or China or wherever, usually a well developed country, where there's a corporation like SeaWorld who tries to use what nature has and use that at the corporation's disposal, um, you know, regardless of how much what they're doing harms the animal. They're gonna do what they're gonna do at the cost of the animal, at the cost of harming the animal. They just to like, and they cover up. They cover up truths about keeping orcas, and keeping orcas in parks. They hide truths. Like I even also recall when I was at SeaWorld, when I was younger, how there were trainers that first I remember trainers saying that um, um, I remember trainers saying that this dolphin or this orca whale isn't doing these tricks because he or she has to, but because he or she wants to, which is a load of bullshit. Secondly, I remember a trainer saying that through age and also whether it be in captivity or in the wild, the fin tips over, which is also bullshit because the fin tips over because of its life in captivity. Um, and it's almost like a lack of respect for or lack of reverence um, for nature itself, lack of reverence for nature, and trying to um, get money and trying to get money out of what nature has. And so the documentary starts out um, going back to 1970, where we had these bunch of um, men who were paid to go out and capture baby whales, and they had helicopters and they had boats, and they would go out and find the mother plus the babies in like these groups of whales, and they would pick out the babies and they would take them, and they have in the documentary one of the men who captured the whales talking about how emotional of a experience it was, um, and basically they talk about this um, uh, sea park that was closed down in the 80s called Sealand in British Columbia, Canada, which had this whale now going by the name of Tilcum, who um, they had a trainer who that and they had at Sealand they had these um, holding cells basically for whales, and it was pretty small for a whale, and Tilcum was a very large male whale, um, and they had him in this very small space for a whale, and the trainer at Sealand was killed. So that park Sealand was closed because of that and because of that incident. And Sealand with all these whales sold the whales to SeaWorld in the 80s. And they sold Tillicum, and SeaWorld bought Tillicum, even while knowing what Tillicum or what happened with Tillicum. And they got Tillicum, SeaWorld did, and they withheld information from the trainers and from the public who contributed to SeaWorld. They um, they didn't tell trainers who worked with Tillicum what Tillicum or what had happened with Tillicum. And also in the 90s, Tillicum um, literally scalped and um, bit the arm off of a trainer named Don Brancho, and Tillicum was a whale that was beat up by the females, and he was put in um, seclusion. So the whole thing is that are they have all these former trainers in that documentary, former SeaWorld trainers, um, who who talk about how they were told that they were helping the whales, or that they were doing good for the whales. Talking about they how they how everything that was going on was all good, was all peachy, um, and they kind of show how SeaWorld is really a immoral venture. It is a immoral company for doing that. It is a immoral company for um, doing that with whales and also for other animals too. And that documentary um, shows that um, orca whales are not just animals. They have very complex brains, almost as we do. Um, they have a part of the brain that we don't, and they communicate with other whales, and that with that echolocation thing, which I'm sure that you were taught in elementary school biology or whatever. Echolocation, which is their like the squeaking or the screeching, where that's their form of communication, and it's not just it's not just menial. It's not just menial communication. It's um, it's very emotional. They live emotional lives. Um, they um, they live emotional lives, and they have complex brains, and they have feelings as to what happens when in the in 1970, when the baby whales were taken from their mothers. They have feelings about that. They have feelings about being put in captivity. They have feelings about all of that, and they have feelings of frustration. They have emotions of um, lots of different things of being put in captivity, and they do tricks because they know that they will get fish, and they do tricks because they know that that's the best thing for them to do, and they don't do that because they want to. And it's true that um, it is immoral and unethical for SeaWorld to do what it does because of that, because of the um, because of the um, emotional lives that whales live. And I think it would be unethical for them to do that for any animal, because I think that is not ethical by itself. But I think it's even more unethical to keep an animal that has a emotional life. So I just wanted to kind of discuss how immoral SeaWorld is, and I think that's what the documentary of Blackfish showed that, and I think that also looking at SeaWorld can kind of expose the dominant worldview that all that corporations in this company, and I mean corporations in this country and others, the greed for trying to get all the money and all the capital they can out of the nature that they have and all the natural resources that they have at their disposal, and how they can take a wild animal, perfectly happy wild animal, which is perfect there, and take it into captivity where it is not happy, and use it for entertainment and make a lot of money, and that is in itself wrong.